So the topic of for today is why private sector players play an important role in the startup ecosystem.
So, have you all found it very easy to access resources? Have you all found it very easy to start building your venture? Who's found it very easy? And how many of you have found various difficulties to get access to capital, get access to mentorship, or various other things you need? So what we're going to discuss over here, and that's why it's quite important, is how do we make this much easier for each one of you over here. So let's just dive straight in and understand what exactly consists of a startup ecosystem and what is the current state, considering we're talking about Mumbai over here, of Mumbai startup ecosystem. So I just ask to start from Romil.
What are different types of startup ecosystem enablers in Mumbai or anywhere else, and who all are there? They would be the best people to help you out to understand out there. So anywhere in our startup journey, we have three basic stages. So I'll take some time if you don't mind. So there are three stages which are there. We are on an idea stage, we are on a launch stage, and we are on a growth stage. So that's how our journey starts. So in each of these stages, in India, we have already grown with a lot of ecosystem players. So when you are on an idea stage, there are players where what you say is inspiring players who are like the talks like TED Talks and Josh. These are some inspiring events which we need to see. There are some startup medias like Your Story, Inc. 42. So when you are on an idea stage, those are the ecosystem players which you should see, learn more about it, evaluate your ideas, and move to the next stage, which is educate. In educate, we have people like Navyukas, we have people like Head Start, we have Startup Saturday Mumbai, such as events where startup inspire about them. Then comes the stage where we have training and feedback, where Founders Institute as well as Startup Grind, such kind of ecosystem enablers are there. Then the stage comes as Validate. So where you have to find your resources, your co-founders. So there are platforms like co-founders and co-founders ecosystem enablers who will come down and help you out. And then finally you have a lot of banks who are doing hackathons, and a lot of other companies like Zone Startups and accelerators are doing. So this is where your entire idea stage ecosystem enablers are there. When it comes to the launch phase, when you're in the launch phase, you first have to establish. That's where banks like RBL, IDFC are come up right now in Mumbai, who are providing loans to early stage startups and helping them out. And apart from that, the banks who are there, we have earlier, throughout the journey of 8 years, what I had seen was when we are starting up, it was very difficult for us to find law firms. But there are startups who are already formed a group of aggregated lawyers out there, like Vakil Search and few others who are there, which will help you out as ecosystem enablers to get a kickstart out there. So moving from that, where is the start state, we have in the start state also another problem, an ecosystem provider which we want is a co-working space or a working space. That's where I think I'll leave it to Ashish to talk more about Bombay Connect and what co-working space are helping them out. Moving from your start stage, you have to move to the develop stage, where we always find what are the people, who are the ecosystem enablers. So those are all our CA firms as well as HR services. So in Mumbai, we have someone called as Sutra HR. There are a few more others like that who are helping out early stage startup to find your prospective candidates and all. We have Head Start hires and all. There are taxation services who are helping you out, those people out there. And then there is one more part which comes in the development is prepare for seed. So I think Dhruv will help and discuss more about the NASCOM 10,000 program, which help you out. And we also have a partner out here which talks about the mentorpreneurs, which have advanced mentors who help you out to grow to the next stage out there. So these are few ecosystem enablers in a launch stage. So once you have developed it, you go to a launch stage where we have accelerators. So we have few people from accelerator programs out here who will talk about how they contribute towards the ecosystem. So this is more about launch page. And then we have, after the acceleration program which you go, there are a lot of people like Thai Mumbai who have a smash up events. And we also have this Navyukar where you have a pitch day right now where you come down and do a demo and pitch day. So then finally you move to a growth stage. So growth stage is where you need recognition. So there are events which are happening across Mumbai by ecosystem enablers who help you connect with the investors. So that is where you should look forward for. And then there are big medias like Economic Times and DNA and Hindu. They are covering your stories where you get more reach out there. Then we have fundings where we have angel investors, we have VCs who will help you out in that. And then finally in a growth stage where you need some IT hubs when you grow to a stage where you have reached a level of more than 10,000, 15,000 employees and you want to expand, we need some infrastructure. So there are a lot of infrastructure providers and growth accelerator program. And in this whole vicinity of these three stages, there are key players like evangelists who help you out. You should feel free to find them, connect them. They're most welcome to help you out. Then there is government who is trying to bring in the picture and help you out. And finally, there are talents like you. There are IT companies as well as the people, the universities and management institutes who are trying to help them out. So this is whole gist of how the ecosystem is developed. And finally, the global resources like we have Celia out here. There are many more who are coming down to India as well as Mumbai and trying to bring this ecosystem actually. So that's how the whole thing is comprised of. I think I'll leave to others now to speak. Yeah, Dhruv.
Thanks, Romil, for listing down all the players, which is actually in Indian startup ecosystem. Of course, Bombay is always there. So, see, the point is we have ecosystem players, we have co-working spaces, we have accelerators, we have industry coming in, we have big VCs sitting here, investing in startup. They are also running the growth accelerators. Idea is actually, these guys are helping startups on a granular organic level? Now, question number one. For example, we have so many co-working spaces. When 4 years back when 91 Springboard started their venture in India, it was a disruption in this space at that point of time. Forget about startup as an individual. If I need to work, if I want to spend some time in a cool environment, need a free internet, and obviously I have to pay some 300, 400 rupees per an hour or per 2 hours. That was there. Now there are so many co-working space in the country, let's say it country. And people are using it, startups go to co-working spaces. One problem is solved. You get a cool space. You get to work with the fellow entrepreneurs, which is altogether leads to a different dimension, right? If I am working on an IoT startup and he's working on some banking solution, so I'll figure out how I can provide my IoT solution to his banking financial services solutions. Now, what value ecosystem players are giving to startups? So I would say accelerators coming up, programs running up, the corporates who have started their own programs focused on one vertical, focused on, for example, Philips, they started their accelerator, which is completely focused on healthcare, and they are targeting complete healthcare sector startups, and actually they are giving value to them. They'll nurture your product, they'll take you to a certain stage, one prototype stage, and then they'll put their technical and business experts on board, and they'll help you in a complete nurture program, and then taking them to your, say, clientele and all that is altogether a different thing that comes in a later stage. But the idea is, the point I'm trying to make it, instead of targeting ad hoc to every domain, every startup, let's target focus sectors. Let's pick up 100 startups in India. Let's pick up 20 startups in Bombay and request all VCs or top accelerators, zone startups, now we work, Head Start, of course, to concentrate to help them get the value out of industry, get the value out of VC, get a value out of government, which I guess Abhishek will cover. So it's all about the intent, because they are trying to solve an innovation problem, which these guys are facing. Ecosystem players should have a knowledge to actually articulate a particular startup, particular problem. We have invested in e-commerce, aggregators, we have invested in everything, and we got an easy ROI because we understood that. And this is the investors' say, it's not my say. People, investors or accelerators don't understand what is IoT, what is AI. AI is not only robotics, it's very vast. You can do tons of things. You can solve billions, trillions of problems by using just AI. Business is for the startups, but your intent should to support them. You give them a network, you get them connected to good industry experts, you get them good VCs and good mentors. That is all important. That is actually the role which we guys play.
So, adding on to that, so Ashish, you've been involved in the startup ecosystem in Mumbai since a very long time, right? Bombay Connect was one of the first co-working spaces. So, adding on to all of this, what do you think is currently the state of Mumbai's ecosystem and what's missing?
What is the startup ecosystem in Mumbai like and what's missing? I think Mumbai as a city is not a startup friendly city. Do you guys agree with me? Yes. Why do you say that? Real estate. Real estate. Well, luckily if you're a digital startup, it doesn't matter that much, right? But the Mumbai is not a very startup city, very startup friendly city. Bangalore is, despite the traffic, number one, as we all know. Gurgaon, real estate is good. So it takes that much more effort for us to stay in Mumbai, right? To remain Mumbaikars and kind of fight through the problems and persevere and still build our businesses. So that's where I think the ecosystem becomes much more important. And you know, I've been to a lot of startup Saturdays and I've been to a lot of NASCOM events. We run a lot of our events ourselves. I've been to a lot of the other co-working spaces and various other things that go on in Mumbai. And I think one of the problems, and I kind of agree with Dhruv here, I think that's the point he was trying to make, is there's also a lot of noise. In Mumbai, you could probably eat breakfast, lunch and dinner at an event every single day of the week for free because there's so many events going on, right? So there's a lot of noise and it's very difficult to differentiate between the substance and the noise. And that's where I think we as an ecosystem need to mature because Mumbai is an expensive city. It is a difficult city. It's not a city where you can get hold of people that easily, or distances are large. There's a lot of issues, but it does have that entrepreneurial spirit, right? It's not the financial capital of India for no reason. And I think also the sector focus that Dhruv mentioned is very important because I think in Mumbai there are some sectors which are naturally that naturally lend themselves better to this kind of a city. Like we are a large consumer market, so consumer, food, fashion, retail, all these things are probably more suited to Mumbai than trying to build a very extremely high-tech IoT kind of startup. And the reason why I would say that is that the tech tribe has almost moved. It's kind of, the tech tribe is in Bangalore. The tech tribe is in Hyderabad and maybe Pune to an extent, right? And maybe Gurgaon maybe to an extent. But I think that verticalization, whatever that may be, I'm not saying that we should be in A, B or C. I'm saying that verticalization of our ecosystem is very important. I think we need to create more specialized programs or focus on some specialized areas. And I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. The other thing I would say is there's also a general, Dhruv also said it, most importantly, VCs. I have a very different view on that. I think the ecosystem should not be focused on the ultimate goal, which seems to be funding. And that is not the way to build an ecosystem. An ecosystem should be a much broader support network. And that is something I strongly believe, and I think we're doing a good job, but we still got a little way to go.
There is a very important aspect, when I started entering this startup ecosystem enabler world in 2013 January. So my take was that first there should be involvement of youth in policy making. Why I'm saying the policy? Because there are a lot of private players who are helping startup, who are helping youth, but the state is always governed by a policy, or the country is governed by a policy. When the Startup India is there, the Stand Up India is there, the momentum is different. We talk about Startup India. How many of us know about Stand Up India? Stand Up India scheme says that every women entrepreneur every branch of the country has to give one loan between 10 lakh to 1 crore to one women entrepreneur. It can be tangible and for manufacturing or startup or service sector, whatever, whatever is the, sector of business. But we haven't given the impetus. I was part of the, NRI startup meet at IIM Ahmedabad, last year, and, there was a lot of, investors, and it was actually pre-Vibrant Gujarat kind of event, and where government of Gujarat, was the sole partner. There also, people were not knowing about Stand Up India. So it's such a big scheme by government of India. Every bank branches have been pushed for this 10 lakh to 1 crore between this loan, especially, and bank branches, the branch manager, we give a lot of training to RBI people at their headquarters. And the branch managers are very much tensed. Like, we are not getting women entrepreneurs. Abhishek, what should be the, solution? And, it is mandatory for giving one loan to one women entrepreneur per year. So if take, for example, 10,000 branches, one women entrepreneur per year, it is 10,000 easily, just making it mandatory to create 10,000 women entrepreneurs. Then same is for SC/ST entrepreneurs. PMEGP is a 45-year-old scheme, Pradhan Mantri Employment Guarantee Program. Now it says that you submit your business idea online, you monitor it online, you track it online. The only rule is that you can avail that scheme only from your particular district. Take, for example, you are from, Salem or, maybe Aurangabad or anywhere else in Indore. So you have to submit from your own districts with your own domicile proof. We are trying to guide the two departments of the country, that is MSME and DIPP, for getting the reality back. How many of you are entrepreneurs and who think they are not into startup category? They will not fall under startup definition. What we are doing, there was a guy, a lady working with Times of India, Delhi. She married a guy who was working, I think, another media group. There are a lot of people in the ecosystem who can convert the existing manufacturers or the conventional business, we say rather, conventional business into startups. And you can avail the benefit of conventional business as well as from the, the startup India or startup Maharashtra or startup different state or startup policy of different state. So that's from my side. And one more thing, I came here because when I talked to Gaurav, last year in Delhi, so I wanted that, Maharashtra sharing the, 50% of the GDP of the country. The youth of this state or, Mumbai, Pune and all, they should be much more contributive to the, policy which government of India makes or government of Maharashtra makes. Because ultimately, look, there will be one wrong policy or wrong statement in the policy. 5 years we have to follow that. And the state will be missing that, complete thing. We have seen. I was part of the 2011 policy, state industry policy of Bihar. And I was not that empowered that time. I was just making the PPT and, changing the numbers, digit, entry tax and all. And, I have seen 5 years a state missed out. So this is a request to you all.
True. That's some really important points that you mentioned over there, Abhishek. Experience. What are the best startup ecosystems you've personally been a part of or seen, and what made them that way?
Gosh, that's not necessarily an easy question, and I think there's the danger that we try to replicate a global model that's successful somewhere else, and anyone who's ever looked at exporting a product will know that you can't necessarily market it in the same way in a different country as you might do in the place that it originates in. So I think, although we have seen, successful models elsewhere, and Silicon Valley, I guess, is the absolute epitome, I don't actually have personal experience of what's happening in Tel Aviv at the moment, but I see the results that are coming out of there. And that really is staggering, what they're achieving. That demonstrates to me that it's not about having that huge population and from, billions of people, 1 or 2 geniuses emerge, as much as it is about nurturing the talent that you have to develop that and support that to ultimately become the successful startup that we're ultimately looking for. What I find quite sad, really, is still, despite all this work that we've been doing, the statistic that suggests the number of businesses that last beyond those first 5 years. And throwing out a ballpark, you know, we're roughly talking about 90% of startups not being around 5 years down the line. And an awful lot can be done to actually reduce that risk element. We've talked here, I think when we're measuring what a good startup is, we're dividing that into 3 different categories which sort of further break down, and I'm not going to bore you with statistics here, but basically, and I mentioned it earlier, you know, we're looking at the infrastructure, the resources, and the attitudes. And I think we've talked about the infrastructure, and the resources are becoming increasingly available. One thing which we can all do to instantly improve the success rate of our ecosystems is to really look at upgrading our attitudes. And, you know, mindset with the global brainstorm, that's my area of expertise. So before I'm too rude, I'm going to stop and ask, there's quite a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience, there's quite a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience. Have we got anybody in the audience who's the partner of an entrepreneur, or the parent of an entrepreneur, or the friend of an entrepreneur? Is anyone here supporting an entrepreneur today? Exactly. Now, our closest friends and family, who in theory are our greatest supporters, can often be our biggest hinderers. And I'm saying this as a way to help you guard against some of the negative feedback that you might get from very close at home. Now, why does this happen? This happens because people care about us, and they perceive that we're taking a big risk. Now, in my case, I'm on a mission that's bigger than me. So you can't actually stop me because it's not myself that's driving me, if you can understand where I'm coming from. It's something much bigger than me. But what I've encountered personally, and what I know a lot of people encounter, is that naysayer, that person that's sort of like, well, what are you doing? Well, is this making you happy? Well, you're going to lose a load of money. You know, this is such a risk. You know, take the conventional route. Be a doctor, be a lawyer. You've got a good brain on your shoulders. And so I'm telling you that to be aware that you will hear that voice at some point. And that's your chance to really start to educate people about this can-do attitude that we need. And we need it right the way through. We can't ever see somebody else's vision. We're not inside their heads. We haven't got their imagination. So our job as supporters of entrepreneurs is to really help them better understand their own vision, rather than to challenge and stop and hinder and show them all the potential problems. So that's one attitude shift that we can encourage in other people, simply by ignoring them. Let them tell you no, but don't listen, would be my first point. And secondly, that can-do attitude is really what this is all about, taking that approach that if there's a problem, that is an opportunity to improve something. That's not necessarily a barrier to success. And that comes by making policymakers aware of what they could be doing to make things easier for us. Making the co-working spaces, the colleges, the investors even, the wider infrastructure and resources within the ecosystem aware of anything that you're not getting that you feel that you need. Be open, be transparent. That's where Silicon Valley, as I said, really succeeds. Nobody keeps their Rolodexes, you know, their contact databases close to their chests. That big difference that we're going through right now between what certainly we've historically called the baby boomer mindset, i.e. the generation that emerged after the Second World War, the babies that were born straight after the Second World War, versus that millennium mindset, which is, you know, that sharing of everything that's going on at the moment. Historically, we used to protect our knowledge. Knowledge is power. Where the big attitude shift comes is when we really start to trust people with the sharing of our ideas, and empower people with the sharing of our contacts. So that's where I think the attitude of an ecosystem can dramatically improve very quickly with very little investment and simply a mindset shift.
True. Thank you, Celia.